Hello, everybody. This is Tom Eckert here. You're listening to my podcast, Numerology, a GPS for the soul. This is your place to learn about the true power of numerology and how to use it to bring out the best in yourself, understand your loved ones better, take wise decisions, and prepare for your future. In other words, how to live your life aligned with your true destiny. Take your time to educate yourself and share these podcasts with your friends and family so they too can enjoy the great benefits of numerology. Enjoy! Hello there, and welcome to all my listeners. Today is another episode of where I will be basically analyzing selected numerology charts of my podcast listeners, freestyle and without preparation. I do that with the intention to show you how numerology works, how the numbers come to life, so that you get a real taste of the power of numerology. But before anything else, if you're new here, welcome. Welcome to my community. Welcome to my podcast. We discuss numerology in this podcast. Numerology is a path for inner transformation, spiritual growth, self-understanding. I make or attempt to make numerology accessible and applicable for everyday life matters, and do my best to provide you with grounded information so that you can apply numerology in order to live a better, a more conscious and balanced life aligned with your soul purpose. Now, in the end of the episode, I will also explain how you too can have a chance of your numerology chart being analyzed on my podcast. So stay tuned. Now, if you want to dive deeper into numerology, today is the last day of my Black Friday discount, which is a 30% off on my comprehensive self-study numerology course. This course can be studied at your own pace on your phone, your tablet, or laptop. If you wish to gain a more solid and reliable grasp of the fundamentals of numerology and how to apply them, I highly recommend checking it out and purchasing this course today. Now, to make use of the discount, upon checkout, make sure to enter coupon code Black Friday 2023, all capital letters. Again, Black Friday 2023, one word, all capital letters. And the link is provided in the episode description. The offer is valid until the end of today, November 26, 2023, so make sure to use it and not miss this opportunity. You can also book a numerology reading with me. In a reading, you can ask any question that is burning in your life and get precise answers. You can read more about my readings and contact me through the link in the episode description. And lastly, if you wish to study numerology on a deeper level or even pursue it as a career path, you can sign up to my complete path of certification from beginner to numerology expert and get certified as a professional numerologist. To read more, again, check out the link in the episode description. So now, without further ado, let us dive into our three charts, starting with our first chart of Adriana Carolyn Vanderhorst. And please forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your names properly. I do my best. Okay, Adriana. So, looking at your chart, and again, guys, I just want to remind you that this is all completely spontaneous, no preparation, and real professional numerology readings do require preparation. So this is a kind of an improvisation, freestyle, to inspire you still. So, Adriana, in your chart, what's really sticking out to me first and foremost is this kind of core energies that are represented by master numbers 11-2 and 22-4. right there, sitting very deep at your emotional core. This tells me that at the very depth of your being and personality, first of all, there's a lot of hidden talent, a lot of hidden potential, and also what I would call altruistic motives that are kind of like, working deep in your heart. Now, whether or not, a person lives up, to their motives is not something we can fully tell as numerologists. There are a few pointers in your chart that do tell me that you managed to live up to some of that. But again, there are a lot of master number energy presence in your chart. And that really, really tells me that you had a lot of opportunity in your life to, again, live out a lot of your talent, that you have a lot of talent. There is a lot of energy as well in your being, fundamentally, also a lot of emotional energy, I would say. And I would say also a deep sense of care for humanity, for human beings, for other people. Something that, again, potentially, just remember that I'm describing your kind of archetypal potential here, okay? So there's something about you that would, if possible, you would really help the masses. And masses, of course, is different from person to person, okay? This can be your circle of friends or your community or, being more public in your country or even international. But definitely that kind of wish to help and support other human beings, because you're also, I would say, a highly emotional and highly sensitive personality. There's a lot of emotional energy in your chart, but also a practical element about you. So it's not, and I would say that is a balancing factor that allows you to take that emotional energy and actually put it into practice, make it real, make it palpable, make it grounded, right? So if I want to help people, for example, I don't just leave it on the realm of saying a good word. And again, I'm not, downplaying saying a good word. That is also a real way of helping people. But I believe with your very, very strong, 4 as a soul urge, it's a 40/4, meaning a heightened energy of 4. There is a great ability, idealism, and wish to eventually ground things in very practical ways. This can also mean taking, your emotional skills and helping people by actually providing them, for example, a safe setting to feel loved and to feel cared for and nurtured and nourished, a safe home, for example. And again, just don't take it too literal. This is an attempt to describe the environment of your chart, of your energetic blueprint, okay? Now, like on the flip side of it, this energy of 4 I was just mentioning can also be a form of opposing or conflicting energy with your emotional nature. Because the 4, it's like you have in mind very often. So let me kind of like take a step back and say, we can look at 2 layers of your being. One is like the emotional center, and one is like the center of the mind and thinking. And on the level of the emotional center, you are highly sensitive, extremely vulnerable. And I'm saying this in the most beautiful and positive sense. So something very open, very easily allowing, impressions to kind of come in and touch you, and very perceptive. So that there's that deep emotional nature. We can call it more feminine in a sense. Receptive. On the other hand, you have this 4 energy coming from your soul urge that sometimes may create a form of a discrepancy between your emotional side and that side that kind of like wants to maybe dominate by I'm trying to kind of like not exaggerate, my not to kind of use a word that is a bit too exaggerated, but like something that may try to control, the emotions, or somehow, like try to be perhaps more practical and down to earth, and maybe sometimes put a damper on your more emotional, sensitive, delicate side by kind of like maybe having this kind of like, voices that say, no, come on, it's not time to be emotional now. Be practical. Just do this or do that. And that side may sometimes, like diminish the strength of your emotional side. It can come across a bit like this little inner dictator that sometimes tries to control, your emotions too much. And it also, there's also an 8 there in your core numbers, and the 4 and the 8, I would say, are really, they can be a little bit controlling and dominating over the energy of the 11-2 right there at the center, which is also a 2 in your life path, and also the 3 in your expression number. These are both very creative, very malleable, very, very impressionable numbers, very emotion oriented. So that's where like things can get a little bit tricky in your chart. However, as I said, it's also like this balancing factor, because you have the ability to be both emotional and practical. And I think that's actually also an interesting balance. And also, like, whatever you do, you can do, I believe whatever you do, you bring some form of magic, and beauty and uniqueness into whatever you do or have done so far, Adriana. Let's see if there's anything else left to say before I move on to our next chart. One thing that also sticks out on the level of challenge, okay? And, it's important to look at our chart always, guys, like from a perspective of, a coin with 2 sides, like a yin-yang kind of perspective that forms a full circle. Like, we're not just light and we're not just shadow. And it works together. We're shadow light. We're light shadow, right? It's this one thing. Knowing our shadow strengthens our light. Knowing our light reveals our shadow. That's so beautiful. And that's the way we should look at ourselves. So definitely, what really sticks out, Adriana, in your chart is like the recurring 1 challenge, which repeats itself 3 times. This really tells me pretty straightforward that you have a topic, a life theme, regarding, I would say, the whole, what I would maybe name as like the masculine energy. This can be a conflict with your own masculine energy. This can be a conflict with men in general. This can be a conflict with the authority figures. This can be a conflict with, or a lack of, your own sense of self-confidence sometimes, or a sense of like self-doubt that accompanies your life, and you have to kind of like wrestle with and come to terms with. Great, Adriana. I think we'll stop here and move on to our next chart. So I hope, Adriana, I gave you some food for thought, some perspective, touched upon some points, and feel free to drop me a line in the question section, although the question section asks for details for those who want to, register to the raffle, be part of it. But you can still leave me like an answer. How did that resonate with you? And I would love to hear from you. That's always lovely to hear from you guys. Awesome. So next in line as our second chart, we have Kaylin Adine Haryuk. And again, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it properly. Kaylin, so here we have like a very, very different chart, okay? And Kaylin, I would say that for me, what sticks out mostly about your chart is that it is intense, okay? It is intense in many ways. I would say lots of potential, lots of intensity, lots of challenges all at once. So I would say like this, if I would have to just like, as I said, like put it in just a few words to give a little bit of a feeling of what your chart kind of like presents to me, in first glance. As I said, no preparation here. You are a very deep person, okay? Like you're, for sure, there's so much depth in you, and a combination of someone who is, I would say, like a perfectionist, that can also be completely the opposite of perfectionist. It's so funny. There are these, I would say, these contrasts in your chart, Kaylin. Like on the one hand, you can be very, as I said, like able, first of all, to achieve like very, very high things, able to have or tending to have like high demands of yourself and others. In particular, by the way, Kaylin, in relationships, intimate relationships. But on the other hand, you have this fire and dynamism and ability or wish also to try things out and, go on adventures and be a little bit like wacky and different and quirky. And so it's super interesting to see this like in one chart. It kind of like, it makes it very versatile and rich in a sense, but as I said, sometimes like it clashes, right? The energies clash with one another. It's like, as I said, this is why it can be also like a lot of potential and also a lot of mess at the same time. And again, for me, none of that is like negative, right? It's like, it can be uncomfortable. It can be very comfortable at times, but I would say with you, it's like definitely a mixture of both in a pretty distinct way. I can imagine with your chart that, first of all, I want to say like just to kind of also, sorry guys, like I realized like I was talking but without mentioning the numbers. So I want to say like at your core, you have 2 sevens, the life path and the birthday number, and they're both derived from the date of birth. So there's something so core about that, so elemental, so fundamental about your being. And you have a 16-7 life path, and that really tells me these 2 sevens, sometimes, on the one hand, they push you to a great depth that most people don't go into. You can be a bit more introverted sometimes, but because you have like a 14-5, another karmic 5 in the expression number, you can also snap out there or like kind of snap out of that bubble or shell and like go out there in more kind of like extroverted ways, coupled with your 44-8 soul urge number. That is a very, very powerful 8 because it's a master number 8. You can, again, like switch gears and kind of like go into that very, very intense expression that can, again, on the one hand, bring you amazing results very quickly, very powerfully. That's kind of like part of the 5-8 energy. Such street wisdom, such capacity to succeed fast, to kind of like read the cues and codes and the rules of the game wherever you are and adapt very quickly. But also get yourself into trouble. That's also some of the 5-8 energy. So I can imagine like 5-8 energy can get themselves sometimes into trouble. Like sometimes the whole topic of boundaries, Kaylin, like are not necessarily that clear. So you can get yourself into some, uncomfortable situations with people. And it can go both ways. Like you can also sometimes with 5-8, people tend to be manipulative sometimes, or so that's something to consider. Interesting. With the 7 and the 8 as a combo, it's important. That's the perfectionist side of you that I was mentioning earlier. You also have like a 6 personality that also adds to the perfectionism. You're definitely a person that, has high requirements of themselves. Sometimes with that 14-5 expression, I would say you, maybe you don't meet your own standards or own expectations sometimes, because that 14-5 expression to me tells me that when it's crunch time or when it's like time to act on something, the 14-5 can sometimes be a little bit more sloppy or hasty, in contrast to the wishes and expectations of the 7s, of the 44-8, of the 6. So that's that. And again, there are many parts of the chart. So for example, looking at your arrows of Pythagoras, okay? It's very advanced material. I'm not expecting anyone here to understand this. I've never created an episode because this is very, very refined material, but you have so many full planes. Now this, from experience, like I would say this tells me about someone that has so much potential, so much power, but sometimes just too much, like too much energy flowing in too many channels, in too many directions, in too many ways. And that's why, again, from another perspective, I just look at your chart and I say like, wow, Kaylin, you have so much potential, but you somehow have to find a way to channel that energy properly without it kind of like overwhelming you, okay? That will be my recommendation in your case. So channeling the energy without getting overwhelmed, without letting it kind of throw you into all kinds of places that you wouldn't want to see yourself in. So to harness the energies, I would say, is very important. One last thing I want to say, Kaylin, because this is a very important thing. With a 7-5 combo, it's important to understand it's a very powerful and challenging combo. So both. It oftentimes sparks a kind of brilliance in a person, okay? It allows for brilliance to manifest. But oftentimes, if you look at brilliant people throughout history, you'll see that oftentimes they had to pay a certain price for brilliance. The flip side of brilliance can be sometimes being out of control. Like life can feel like, oh my gosh, like things are completely turbulent. And I am also referring more specifically to the inner world, to the psychological world, okay? Like that's where this can very often be felt. Like this unpredictability of emotions and turbulence and things, you know, just like shooting in all directions inside. And like, okay, so it's a bit of a two-sided arrow here. So I would say a lot to have the ability and the people around you that support you being sometimes like just wacky and different and other, and allowing your energies to flow freely in a way that is not always understood can be really great for you. Okay. Now, remember, and I'm saying this to all the listeners, this is a freestyle reading. I'm trying to take roughly 10 minutes per chart to give some idea, to inspire, to talk about the numbers. In a reading where I will never give a reading to a person, a full reading, a complete reading, a professional reading, without seeing the person in video, meeting them, because a reading is a very sensitive thing. It is really powerful. It is touching. It is activating. It is life-changing, right? It's not randomly, it's not arbitrarily that I chose the name for my podcast, a GPS for the soul, right? It's a GPS for the soul. We're touching here on a very deep level. So take what I say lightly. These episodes are more to inspire you, but if you feel that you want to go deeper, any one of you, those whose charts I've already analyzed, or anyone else, just remember that there's no substitute for a professional reading. These readings are snippets into your life, sneak peeks. Okay. So having said that, and just before I'll move into the third and last chart for today, if you are enjoying this podcast, my friends, and if you want to keep learning more in-depth, grounded, high-quality numerology, make sure to click the follow or subscribe button on the platform you're listening from and become part of my numerology community. That will really support this podcast very much. Feel free to share it as well. And if you feel benefited by this podcast, make sure to leave a review. It really goes a long way in supporting my work. So thank you. Having said that, let us talk about Anita Faye Goldsworthy. Again, Anita, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. So here we are with Anita. Again, we have like this shift of energies. With Anita, we are talking about someone who's so much more youthful in essence. Anita, that's like very, very sticking out from your chart. Someone with a very strong, childlike, youthful, outgoing, humorous, colorful personality. And we're talking about numbers like 3, like 5, like 2, like 3, like 8. All of them combined, really tell me about someone who is very colorful and very like a rainbow, okay? Rainbow of expression. Expression is so key and so important to you, Anita. Expressing your emotions, expressing your creativity, your ideas, which you have a lot of, expressing your voice, writing, but also being physical and expressing with your body. So it's, you have many ways or avenues, so to speak, to kind of express your talents. But it's like you really want to, have your voice heard, your emotions expressed, your creativity expressed, your body moving, laughter, going on there. Very important. Humor, by the way, in your life. A very, like, a key kind of component, I would say. And from what I see here, I think you're like also like a very easily lovable personality with two threes, like very positioned in a way that are both who you are in the depth, but also how you appear to be to other people. And very often when you see that life path and personality identical, 2 times the same number, it's like the inner and the outer will often be one, and that even amplifies, this kind of like a form of immediacy in the way you come out. It's like what you see is what you get when somebody kind of meets you, and like a lot of that 3 sweetness, comes out, and the humor and the loveliness. And I would guess, like, if I would see you with your numbers, I would also see someone with very sweet, distinct features, maybe even like a very soft kind of skin, and some sweet dimples, like, in your cheeks or something along these lines. Again, I'm just, because people with strong 3s and then a 5 and also like an 11-2, which is also a 2, is like very often have this kind of like sweet, soft appearance. It's very, very common to see that. Now, I do want to say that in your soul urge number, you have an 11-2, and that really tells me that while I mentioned a lot of the youthful energy and a lot of the fun and sweetness and outgoingness, you also have a very inspired personality, a very intuitive personality. It's like you are, all these numbers, by the way, just led by the 11-2, because the 11-2 kind of like stands tall here, okay, in your soul urge as a kind of like a receptor of intuition and guidance. So I can definitely imagine that you have a lot of inspiration coming through, and all your numbers are very intuitive numbers. Like, I can imagine someone like you, seeing things, colors, messages, auras, intuitions flowing easily, into you and from you, onwards, towards others. Very inspired. Now let me see if there's anything else I see here that's kind of like worth mentioning, just right off the top of my head. Okay, yeah, maybe just a couple more things. So with all that being said, like all the fun, inspiring, I would also like to say a few more things about, I think you're a nature person, like for sure, like being around nature, being in nature, being inspired by nature, doing activities in nature. I think like that can be extremely beneficial for you. People with 3 and 5s are very often people that love nature and are very deeply connected to nature, like nature kids, nature children. But also, what's so beautiful is that you have this kind of like 8s in your chart. They're kind of like coming as an addition to these youthful energies, which tells me that you are also very much capable of moving things forward. So there's a lot of creativity and the ability to, get things done there, and to push ideas forward and to make them happen and to, eventually also make money, for example. I can imagine that can be a frontier that really works well for you, or at least potentially works well. Okay. It's important to remember, there is no promise with our chart. It just really, really depends, how we move about our chart, and the opportunities it opens before us. Also, what is striking me is that I believe that you have a deep wish to help people. Now, I'm not saying this to everyone. I know I said that I believe to, in the first chart reading, I also mentioned that, but sometimes I really see that. And in your chart, I see that as well. Now, there's so many ways to help, okay? But something here dreams about touching people in some way or another. Okay. And I often see with people with a life path 3, despite 3 often representing like the child or like the innocence and so on, I also see some very, very powerful qualities of 3 that I don't often see with others. And that is the capacity to be very dedicated to supporting people in very difficult places. Something about the 3, because the 3 is inherently light, that actually gives it the capacity to help people in very difficult situations, because it's not as affected as other numbers. Say 7, 7, it can be too much. On the one hand, they're very deep, but on the other hand, it's like it can be too overwhelming, but not for the 3. And especially a 21-3 moved by the 2 and the 10s number, it's like a 3 that is so caring and so loving of people. And so I just want to, put it out there for you, Anita, because with the 11-2 soul urge and the 21-3, a life path and other numbers I cannot even, speak about because they're so advanced and also pertain to the methodology I teach that was handed down to me by my teacher from Israel. So that's only reserved for people who study with me. I see other influences that really tell me that your soul has a very strong 3 power not only from your life path and 11-2 powers. Again, not only from your life path. That's why I wanted to put it out there for you to know that if you haven't done it so far, you may have done it already or are doing it. But if you haven't, that's something really to consider, that you may be able to really touch and help people in ways you haven't even imagined prior to me sharing these words with you right now. Okay. So I think I'll end with that. So again, Adriana already, I asked you if you can, comment. That would be so great. But Kaylin and Anita, again, feel free to comment by answering the question section on Spotify. If you can. I'm not sure if the question section is available in other platforms, but if it is, please do answer. And again, although the question is I'm asking people to actually fill in the details to join the raffle in case they're interested to have their charts analyzed on the podcast, you can still just answer and let me know how this felt to you, or drop me an email, guys. That'll also be lovely. And of course, if you want to take this deeper, remember, only a professional numerology reading with me will do, because this is just, again, just a sneak peek. So just take it as such. Okay, guys, so once again, you got a glimpse into numerology readings and how the numbers, come to life, weave all the details of the chart together, how the numbers kind of show you how the numbers come together and form the story of your life. And as I already mentioned, just take into account that for a proper in-depth numerology reading, a numerology chart has to be prepared in advance. And in addition, a chart is always prepared based on the needs of my clients and their questions or burning topics. So right now, what you heard me, talking about, or this kind of reading, is what I would call usually like a general reading. When somebody just comes to me and say, Tom, I don't have like any particular question, but I want you to simply tell me, who am I? Like, what are my energies? What are my potentials? But very often I would have clients coming in asking for very particular topics to be analyzed and be seen into. So just for you to have like an idea of how this works. A full reading is also about an hour long and allows for, the proper time and space to dive very deeply into any topic that is relevant for you. And nevertheless, I'm pretty certain that, listening to these freestyle chart analysis episodes, you can get a pretty good taste and feeling of how the numbers come together and what a numerology analysis sounds like, feels like, so that this makes it far more real in your experience. And I hope this keeps inspiring you to go deeper into numerology. And I very much look forward to reading more of your charts. Having said that, in order to get a chance at having your chart analyzed in future episodes, what you need to do is write me your full name at birth, including middle names. Also include your date of birth and email address. Okay, now make sure to write your date of birth in a way that the month is written as a word, meaning November 5th, 1975. Don't write 11/5. Reason being, I live in Europe. Many of you live in the US or other countries. We have different formats of writing the day and the month. They flip. So just write the month as a word. That will clarify everything for me. And please do so by answering the question below the podcast description. Now, if you can't find the question section, or if you aren't listening via Spotify, you can send me these same details via the contact form on my website. And rest assured that your details are visible only to me. Now, once I have your details, you'll join the raffle. Before a freestyle chart analysis episode, I will choose 3 random listeners who applied. And I will notify you if you were chosen via my newsletter. That's why I asked for your email. Every chosen listener will have their chart analyzed only once. So please, do not send your details again if you're already chosen. And also, please, no need to send your details more than once. It does not give you more chance to be chosen to the reading. Okay, guys, just before we wrap up, remember to make use of my 30% off Black Friday discount on my comprehensive self-study numerology course. It's really, really a great way to gain a solid grasp of the fundamentals of numerology and how to apply them. Remember that the offer is valid only until the end of today. Okay, so really, if you want to go for it, just go for it. It's a really worthwhile course. To make use of the discounts upon checkout, make sure to enter the coupon code Black Friday 2023, one word in all capital letters. The link is provided in the episode description. And of course, don't forget to check out my professional numerology readings should that interest you, and also to check out my in-depth numerology certification studies should you wish to pursue numerology more professionally. And last but not least, if you enjoy this podcast, my friends, and want to keep learning numerology in depth, make sure to click the follow or subscribe button on the platform you're listening from and become part of my numerology community. My friends, it was a joy as always. Take care wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next episodes. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, and you want to go deeper into numerology, check out my website, tom-eckert.com. You can also book a numerology reading or even study numerology yourself through my courses. I'll see you in the next episode.